Good morning and welcome to this Taxi and General Committee being held on Friday the 25th of March 2022. This meeting is being held remotely via Microsoft Teams due to restrictions in relation to COVID-19. My name is Councillor Walter Williams and I will be chairing this licensing meeting today. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available to view via the Council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images and audio of those individuals present and or speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the Council website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. I will now carry out a roll call for attendance. Please can you announce yourself as present when I call it your name? Members first, please.
Councillor Mike Adams.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Elizabeth Aldworth.
Present.
Thank you. Chair, we've had apologies from councillors John Bevan, Bill Bevan, Donna Cushion, Wyn David, Mike Davis, David Haas, Denver Priest, Diane Price, Councillor John Roberts.
Chair, and good morning, everyone.
Thank you. Chair, we've had apologies from councillors Julian Simmons and June Stone. And then yourself, Chair.
Present.
Present. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I now carry out the roll call for attendance for officers, please. Jackie Morgan, Trading Standards Licensing.
Present, Chair.
Lee Morgan, Licensing Manager.
Yeah, present, Chair. Good morning.
Okay. Mike Wallbank, Senior Solicitor.
Present.
Thank you. And Rebecca Barrett, Committee Service Officer.
Present, Chair.
Thank you all. Can I also welcome supporting officers from licensing and committee services who are present in the background. We also have a member of the public in attendance to speak on the item, Mr. George Edwards, Caerphilly County Borough Taxi Drivers Association.
Morning, Chair.
Morning, Mr. Edwards. Thank you for confirming your attendance. Please, can I remind attendees, if they lose connection during the meeting, please make every attempt to reconnect. However, the meeting will continue as long as the meeting is quorate. Committee services are on hand and will be able to assist you to reconnect if necessary. Please can I ask everyone to keep their microphones on mute until they are invited to speak. I should also remind everyone that Chair has a discretion to remove persons from the remote meeting if that is necessary. If you wish to speak, please use the hands up function in Microsoft Teams. Voting for this meeting will be taken via Microsoft Forms. So we go to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we've taken them. The apologies.
Thank you. And declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of any item of business on this agenda. In accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and a Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Please use the hands up function to indicate if you have any such declarations. No hands up, thank you. Agenda item 3, proposal to increase Hackney carriage fare tariffs. Mr. Lee Morgan from Licensing, can I hand over to you, please?
Thank you, Chair. Well, members, good morning and welcome to Mr. Edwards from the Caerphilly Taxi Drivers Association as well. Members, there is one agenda item for your consideration this morning in relation to proposals to revise the Council's Hackney carriage tariff affairs or taxi tariff affairs. Members, one agenda item, but 3 considerations as part of that item for you to decide upon at the meeting, and we'll come on to those shortly. Members, by way of some background really to this matter, the Council is responsible for setting a tariff of fees which are applicable to hackney carriage vehicles or taxis. Unlike some other trades, there is specific legislation which requires any increases in the tariff to be considered by members prior to the publication of a 14-day consultation period on the same. So it's unlike some other service areas where the prices can be increased straight away. There is a procedure that needs to be followed, and this is part of that procedure for the Council. To give you some indication, there are some, as we stand, 290 hackney carriage vehicles currently in the borough. And as you'd be aware, the tariff of fares will set out the maximum that those the drivers of those vehicles may charge a passenger. So the tariff sets the bar, but obviously the drivers may choose to charge below that rate. But it is the maximum tariff that it can be charged for this vehicle type. The tariff, or the tariff of fares, will detail the hours of operation that the tariff is applicable for, and it would also then set out a charge for waiting time. And they're the 3 matters that you'll be tasked with determining this morning. The waiting time, as the name implies, is the time after hiring, in effect, of a hackney carriage or taxi. So that could be a scenario where somebody pops into a shop and asks the driver to wait, and obviously then there is a charge which is applicable to be paid by that passenger as a result. So the current tariff of fares was last revised in 2018. And that tariff is, and the hours of operation for the same is set out at page 11 of your bundle at Appendix A. And I'll just pause so that you can see what that looks like, currently. So you'll find these tariff cards contained within our hackney carriage vehicles in the borough. And this information then sets out to the members of the public, what they're going to pay and when. Okay, so it'll say, currently it's a 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. Changeover period. So there's a daytime and a nighttime rate, or evening rate in effect. And then there's different tariffs then for the size of the vehicle. For example, there may be a different rate applicable to a vehicle carrying 5 to 8 passengers than it is for a vehicle carrying 1 to 4 passengers. So that's the current rate that members of this committee would have approved back in 2018. Okay, so since then, much has changed, and there's been significant change, certainly over the last few weeks and months. The proposals which have triggered the matter being brought for you this morning have come from 2 sources. They've come from the Caerphilly County Borough Taxi Drivers Association through Mr. Edwards, who's present today, and also from one of our hackney carriage vehicle proprietors. And the proposals received have asked the licensing authority, in effect, to consider a revision to the council's tariff. And the submissions by both parties can be seen at Appendix D, and they are between pages 17 to 19 of your report. And again, I'll just pause so that you can just turn to the pages so you can see what has been submitted to the authority requesting change. What I'll say is that both parties have been invited and notified of the meeting this morning and invited to attend, should they wish to speak in relation to their proposals. Indeed, and I'll further clarify that the proposals have been submitted back on the 23rd of November and the 23rd of November 21 and the 23rd of December 21. So before, there's been some significant change, in relation to the events in Ukraine and things like fuel prices. Okay, so members, so when proposals of this nature are received, we will, as officers, conduct a comparison of itself with its neighbours, both locally, and then we look also nationally. And you'll note reference to this in paragraphs 5.3 and 5.4 of the report. They allude to two appendices, appendices B and C, and those reflect then the Hackney Carriage League tables, I suppose, then of tariff affairs, and it shows where Caerphilly sits amongst, nationally for a 2 mile tariff 1 journey, and by that I mean perhaps a daytime rate, as I would refer to it. So it's a line in the sand enables the authorities to compare itself nationally. So you'll see those contained in your bundle at pages 13 to 14, and then a Wales comparison so that you can see how Caerphilly effectively compares to other Welsh authorities on page 15. And I would just say that these figures were prepared as at December 2021. So that's the time that these documents were prepared. Members, as you'll know, since the last tariff review, there's been an increase in the cost of living generally, and certainly in relation to fuel. And paragraph 5.5 of the report highlights from the last time we conducted this exercise as officers and brought matters before members' attention, there's been a 32.6% increase in petrol prices, and more importantly, perhaps for some of our taxi trade, a 37% increase in diesel. Members, following receipt of the proposals to revise the tariff, the authority has consulted with members, licensed drivers of the Hackney carriage and trade and vehicle proprietors in the borough in relation to the proposals that have been submitted. This consultation was done electronically between the 28th of January to the 12th of February. And that is detailed at paragraph 5.7 of the report. And the information then that was provided to the trade, demonstrating what each proposal would look like in relation to journeys for 1 to 5 miles and up to 10 miles, was circulated as part of the sort of consultation that we conducted. And the information then is contained within Appendix E, and you'll see that contained between pages 21 to 25 of the report. Members, I would bring your attention to a typographical error contained in the proposed options that were circulated to the trade, which I've set out in paragraph 5.8. So, paragraph 5.9 of the report, members, sets out the results then of the consultation that was undertaken, and you'll see that there were a total of 32 responses from drivers and vehicle proprietors received as part of the consultation, and they were asked to comment upon 3 things in effect. They were asked to comment upon the proposed tariff that they would support, either proposal A or proposal B, and it's perhaps the document which perhaps best highlights this for you. We'll come on to it. Is Appendix F of the report, and that provides the 2 prospective tables side by side with the increases shown in terms of the monetary amount and then the percentage increase, should members go with either proposal. So that is contained at Appendix F for your information. So that is one of the elements that we will ask you to consider this morning. Then you'll note the 2 others relate to the waiting time and the request to increase waiting time from 10 pence per 30 seconds to 20 pence per 30 seconds. And the other matter then is the effective time then that tariff 2 would come into effect. So as I mentioned, currently, it's I refer to it as a daytime evening split, and then there's some proposals, different proposals that were received as part of this consultation. So one advocated that Tariff 2 should not come into effect until 10 p.m. and should remain in place till 6 a.m., which is different to what we have now. And the second then, via the Taxi Association, advocated a change to reflect that Tariff 2 will effectively come into effect as normal on a Friday night at 7, but would remain in effect then till Monday morning at 7 a.m. So effectively, passengers would be paying Tariff 2 rates over the weekend. So they are the different considerations I will ask you later to comment on, really, and to consider. So the paragraph 5.12 of the report in your bundle, this details that your proposals today, your determination, will go on then to the Cabinet, who will authorise then the required statutory 14-day consultation with members of the public, and that consultation ultimately will determine then if there's no objection, that the approved rate will come into effect, or if there is objection, then the matter will be brought back and be reconsidered by Cabinet before the tariff is effectively set. So the timing of the consultation exercise, I would just like to mention, was conducted, prior to, significant increase in hostilities in Ukraine, which is, as you'll be aware, has certainly had an impact on fuel prices. There has not been an increase since 2018, so it's perhaps accepted that there would be a request to increase the tariff of fares in any case, but clearly now the cost of fuel has certainly had an impact on the licensed trade. So the consultation results that we conducted then, which finished on the 12th of February, some of the comments that were made by drivers at that time, clearly those matters may have changed now. And for example, you will note from the papers that out of the 32 responses, 19 favoured proposal B, which was, I suppose, what I would describe as the more modest increase of proposed. Whereas possibly if you conducted, a vote or a consultation exercise now, it might be that proposal A might be favoured, and perhaps it doesn't seem as extreme in terms of an increase, given the cost of fuel rises that everyone has seen in certainly the last month. Okay, so members, if I take just the proposals itself, so effectively we will ask you to consider, after considering the report, proposal A or proposal B in terms of the tariff increases, and you'll see at paragraphs 5.14 and paragraphs 5.15 what that means in each tariff band. Okay, so 5.16 then describes how, if we were to perhaps introduce proposal B or proposal A, how those things would look in relation to the fares for a 2-mile journey. And it's the important thing I think we need to look at here is the 3 elements that I mentioned earlier on. So it's the different tariff, proposal A, B, the increase in the waiting time, and C then the time at which tariff 2 takes effect. So they're the 3 elements. I'm bringing it back to that, so that that is because you'll see in terms of the conclusion and obviously the recommendation in the report that these are the things that we needed to bring out from this committee this morning. Members, if you determined, for example, to recommend proposal A today, then a 2-mile journey on tariff 1, what I would class as the daytime rate, would equate to £6. This would be just below the UK national average of £6.06, and those figures were arrived at as at December 21. There appears to be general support from the consultation that was undertaken to increase the waiting time from 10 pence per 30 seconds to 20 pence. You know, there seems to be, I think it was 26 out of the 32 respondees were advocating that, yes, they felt that waiting time should be increased. I have included in your bundles the comments of the respondees to help you get a flavour really as to their thinking at the time that obviously this consultation was undertaken. So there appears to be general agreement there. The licensees that we consulted with didn't seem to share the consensus in relation to the hours of operation of Tariff 2. This is where responses were split. So members today have the option really to consider whether to maintain the current timings as they are now between 7 AM and 7 PM, or whether they consider the requests to implement Tariff 2 prices from 7 o'clock on a Friday and then running all the way through the weekend to a Monday. You know, this, you know, members may wish to consider here that you know, there'll be a higher cost than over the weekend for people travelling on on a Saturday morning throughout the day and into a Sunday, and whether members feel that you know, that people tend to do more of their essential business during those hours, and whether that sits well with members in terms of having that increased rate over the weekend period. Obviously, that would be a consideration for you today. The reference in the Taxi Association proposal details that, you know, that if it has been proposed in that manner, as drivers have stated, if they were to work in any other industry, there would be a Monday to Friday pay scale and a different pay scale on a Saturday and also for Sunday working. Yes, that does take place in some industries, but then in other industries there is a flat rate, you know, whether you know, irrespective of what day it is. So it's whether members, you know, looking at the report, that you would want to either move away from the current position of 7 AM till 7 PM, or introduce effectively the Tariff 2 all over the weekend, or the other option, which was proposed by the Hackney Carriage proprietor, was that Tariff 2 would not take effect until 10 PM of an evening and would continue till 6 AM. In terms of the responses, you know, there was only 4 respondees who favoured that approach, so that didn't appear to be popular amongst the persons who responded to the survey. Members, you know, there are 2 aspects here for your considerations in terms of the ability of taxi drivers to and their ability to living through the Hackney Carriage rates. Clearly, the cost of fuel has increased, but I know you'll also bear in mind that we want travel to still be affordable for members of the public to use. And you know, we want to make sure that travel is affordable to all, you know, at all times. So, members, I know that you'll take those. It's reflected in the report in terms of the individuals who use taxis. The taxis are a fundamental support link, you know, for certainly some of our older persons and people with disabilities. So, you know, I know that you'll take those things on board. So, members, I've sort of rattled through the report fairly quickly. I would encourage you to look at Appendix F. is quite useful to look at and to see how each proposal will turn out. Then it's about asking yourself then, is it proposal A or B that you would support? Equally then, should there be this increase in the wait-in time? And finally then, the hours of operation of the tariff, that will, at what point it takes effect. So members, what I perhaps plan to do is perhaps pass back to the chairman now. First of all, I'll guide you to perhaps one final point then, just picking up on my comments. You'll see in paragraph 5.19 the conclusion to the report, and then the very same then is reflected at the front in the recommendation at 3.2, and that sets out then the considerations that you have this morning and the questions that are effectively are being posed to you. So perhaps at this point, I will hand back to the chair. There may be questions you may have, but I'll obviously endeavour to answer them as best I can. So Chair, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Are there any questions for Mr. Morgan, please?
Chair, I've just put my hand up. Councillor Adams.
Councillor Adams, yes.
Thanks, Lee. That's it's a very complicated read about how we should be approaching this, and in many ways, unfortunately, it's out of date, as you've just a number of times indicated strongly. If some of these questions were being posed now to taxi drivers, we would have a very different lean on where we are now compared to at the end of November. I was disappointed when you said we have 290. Was it? Is that taxi drivers or taxi cabs that are licensed? And only 32 actually responded to something which is really so important to their livelihood. It would have been great to have had many, many more that we could compare then which way they wanted to go. But there we are. It's the same with most consultations. We don't get anywhere near as many responses as we would like to know that we were really answering what a majority wants to do. The other thing about it, of course, is we have had such a spike in the cost of energy generally, petrol and diesel for these users. Is probably, if the war finished tomorrow, it would still be many months before the prices that they had to face would be coming down. But also in their everyday lives, they're facing inflation at a rate that we wouldn't have thought possible, perhaps back in October, November. So it isn't only the cost of them running their taxis, it's also their everyday lives outside of the taxi and their family lives as well that we need to be looking to consider. So I'm sure the other members, and that's another thing, I wish we had more members who had more experience of using taxis. I'm not a taxi user, fortunately. I don't need one for going back and forth the supermarkets and having 3 or 4 bags, where a taxi that you're waiting for really is so useful. And I don't know, Chair, whether we are expecting Mr. Edwards to have any input today on this. Hopefully we will be able to listen to somebody from the front end of all of this at some stage. So it's not going to be an easy one to think what we do now, how much impact it will have in the very near future. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Adams.
Sorry, Councillor, did you want me to come back on?
Yes,
there was certainly a question on one part of that.
Yeah,
then,
from the total number, from 290 and only 32 responses, I'm sure we made every effort to every taxi driver to fill in that consultation form.
What I would say that there are, at the time of the exercise, I think some 400 holders of joint hackney carriage private hire vehicle driver licenses. there are 290 currently Hackney carriage vehicles. So, but you are right, in every consultation that is undertaken, perhaps across the council, it's the return rate or the response rate. You never capture everybody. I think if another consultation was done again in the future, given the way the things are gone at the moment, then I'm sure there would be more respondees. But coming back generally on your point, I think it is important that from 2018 to now, there's been 3 to 4 years have passed. The costs have increased. So it's of no surprise that we did receive a request to increase the tariff. So I suppose any increase at the moment from the existing will be a benefit to Hackney carriage drivers out there. And I take on board your point about costs generally have increased for not just the taxi trade, but even users of taxis as well. So it's yeah, okay. But I'll hand back to the chair. Thank you, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you,
John
Mr.
Roberts
Morgan.
has his hand showing, Chair.
Yeah, can I just go to Mr. Edwards, please?
Okay.
Okay, before, I know we'll have questions after, okay? Thank you. Mr. Edwards, can you make a representation, please?
Yeah, good morning, members.
Yeah, you have 5 minutes, yeah?
In regards to the proposals that were submitted by the Taxi Association, when the proposal was made, granted things weren't as bad as they are now, but obviously one of the things that when we the Taxi Association consulted with our members, they all want a massive increase, but it's just not feasible, I'm afraid. But one of the things we did agree on was by having a small increase, we didn't think it would have too much of an impact on the trade, whereas a bigger increase could have the reverse effect where people wouldn't use taxis because the cost then would be too extreme. So the proposal put in by us was a small increase, but that would benefit drivers slightly more in the long run. And in regards to the times that the tariffs are in play, we were hoping that obviously on the weekend we could bring tariff 2 in at 7 p.m. and keep it until 7 a.m. on a Monday, so all drivers across the board would see the benefits of the increase. So the daytime drivers would also see a small increase on the weekends in their take-ins, and this would hopefully help with the costs of everything going up. I understand in the other proposal they were looking to put tariff 2 back to 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I just wanted to bring it up that if we did go back to that, we would ineffectively be taking a step backwards, because that's what it used to be prior to 2018. So obviously I'd like to keep that as it is. Should members decide not to put tariff 2 all weekend, I would ask that you take into consideration leaving it as it is now, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Without the increase, should you decide not to give us the full weekend increase. Obviously everything is going up, and I'm sure, like you say, members of the trade would love to have a massive increase, but I just don't think it's feasible to the public. And obviously having a 10 pence increase on the front of the meter, which is what we've proposed, and a 20 pence increase on the back, drivers will only benefit from a pound extra over a 5-mile journey, if that makes sense, in regards to the back of the meter, where they'll see a slight increase on the front. And what we found is in the trade that if you put too much of a big increase on the front of the meter, so when you start the meter, currently it starts at 340, asking for a 10 pence increase to 350, the members of the public tend not to sort of say anything in regards to that. But if it was a massive jump, believe you me, the first thing they do is start screaming and shouting because they've seen a massive increase. This is what happened in 2018, because the last increase was 2008. In 2018, because there was a big jump, it did knock the trade for a short period of time, where people were reluctant because there's such a big jump. So we've tried to do it where it's just small increases, and we'll look at how the future goes, where we possibly have small increases, but on a more frequent basis, maybe every 2 years or something like this, instead of every 5 or 10 years. So I appreciate you taking the time to go through this morning, and hopefully you'll take into consideration what we spoke about. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Any questions, please?
Chair, Councillor Roberts did have his hand showing before you called in Mr. Edwards.
Councillor Roberts, please.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to Mr. Edwards as well. It helps. I just want to clarify something that Lee's spoken before, if I may. Just to get it straight in my head, it's about numbers. Lee, when the consultation was carried out, you said it was a while ago. I'm not on about the respondents now. Just want to ask, how many licensed members did you say we had at that time in the county? And how many have we got now? So have we got less now than before? That's all I want to ask for now.
Oh, okay. The figures haven't changed much since we have undertaken the consultation. We hover or are hovering around the 400 mark for licensed hackney carriage and private hire vehicle drivers in the borough.
Okay.
This is a joint license. There are two different types of vehicles, as you know. There's the hackney carriage vehicles, and we have 290 of those.
Yeah.
And again, those figures sort of hover around that mark, and they haven't changed. If you think about it, the 23rd of November was the submission of the proposal by the Taxi Association, and the figures haven't changed significantly since that time. So there's not been a massive drop. They sort of have straight lined in effect. Some will come, some will go. But there's been no considerable difference.
No, that's okay.
Thank you. Any more questions?
No other hands showing at the moment, Chair.
Yeah. Could I ask Mr. Edwards a question, please? Mr. Edwards?
Yes, Chair.
When we had these quick rises in years gone by, where it's gone to an high point, and then, as you said, people complain. Did you find we had a lot of these cowboys coming along?
No, it obviously, we've been pretty steady with regards to the drivers we got in the trade, and most of them are still the same drivers. I know that when lockdown started in 2020, I know we lost a fair amount of drivers. So the trade has suffered since then, and sadly not a lot of drivers want to come into this industry at the moment, because it isn't the best industry to be in. But obviously, what I want to avoid is, as I said before, I just don't want massive increases on the meter, and then we have the adverse effect where people just don't use us at all. That's what I'm trying to avoid. Because we did have this in 2018, when we had a massive increase from 2008 to 2018. They went up a fair jump. So I want to avoid this, and also be mindful that we need to keep costs low for the general public as well.
Thank you. So, no other questions?
Yeah, I just put my hand up.
Councillor Adams, yeah.
Again for Mr. Edwards, Chair, if you'll come back online there. You mentioned about how things dropped off at the start of lockdown, Mr. Edwards. We've now had an announcement today that virtually all restrictions from Monday will be off, including the wearing of masks, etc., on public transport. Is that right? That we've just had that?
Yes.
And did that affect, do you think, the number of clients for taxis wearing masks? Did you have any problems reported to you from your drivers about people not wanting to wear masks when really they were being asked to?
I've experienced this myself, Chair, because obviously as the chairman of the Taxi Association, I also drive myself.
Yeah.
So we've all experienced it where, especially from our older drivers then, who are trying to protect them and their families more than the younger drivers, where they've asked you know, members of the public to please wear a face covering or to sit in the rear of the vehicle. And some drivers have faced hostility where passengers don't want to wear them. And I suppose in the end, drivers have given up asking because there's no, we can't really enforce it as a driver. And obviously drivers don't want to refuse to carry the passenger because they don't want to lose the income.
That's right.
It's been a mixed approach and it's been a difficult one, but because obviously the drivers are unable to enforce it, if the passenger doesn't want to wear a mask, they've just allowed it and got on with it, but they've asked that the passenger sit in the rear of the vehicle rather than the front with the driver. So it's been a mixed approach, but over the last couple of weeks, yes, we've seen an increase in the number of passengers we're carrying. We're starting to slowly see increases, not drastically, but we are seeing an increase in numbers of fares we're carrying. But I think we've also seen an increase in the number of passengers that don't want to wear face coverings anymore, or especially over the last 2 months.
Yeah. That's okay, and it's likely to be getting easier and easier for people to think it's okay to get in the back now without one. Although when I'm on the bus, I always still wear a mask, and I will continue to wear a mask when I'm out shopping as well. But there we go. Thanks for those answers.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Morgan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps it's a question perhaps which members may be coming to in a second, but it's just one I'll perhaps ask myself really. And it's for Mr. Edwards. Just so perhaps members are clear, are you saying that out of the two proposals that have been put forward, that you would still have a preference for the Taxi Association proposal B in respect of the tariff increase then itself, not necessarily the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or the operation of the tariff, but in relation to the proposals that have been put forward, out of the two that are contained within the report before members, are you asking members that they should consider proposal B?
Yes, Mr. Morgan, I'm asking for proposal B to be considered, where I believe it'll have a less impact in regards to the public, and obviously it's less, you know, the increase is small, but I think the general public will be more willing to use it if it's a small increase rather than a bigger increase. I don't want to put them off by having such an increase where they'll say it's cheaper not to use a taxi and to use the bus or to walk. So I'm just worried it could have the reverse effect if the increase is too much.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards, could I ask another question, please?
Yes, Chair, of course.
If we were to go to the higher increase, could you use your discretion then to when you go to it, or would it be best for us to set the sum?
If obviously, if you agreed proposal A or proposal B, then obviously everybody in the trade would have to pay to have their meters altered then to the new tariff, whichever one you decide, A or B. But obviously, you know, Hackney carriages fitted with meters is supposed to use the meter, but we can charge below the meter price, but we can't charge above it. But obviously just bear in mind that there will be a cost to the trade to have all the meters altered to proposal A or B, whichever one. We've still got to have the meters altered then to match that, the new tariff fare, but we can charge below the meter price.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions? No. Thank you very much. Thank you, members, for your comments. The recommendation on page 1 of the pack, members are asked to consider the following proposal on the amendments to the Hackney carriage fare tariff and make recommendations for a preferred proposal to Cabinet for approval, and then to enable the proposals to be advertised in the press for a 14-day public consultation period. Members will firstly take a show of hands for each recommendation to gather a general consensus of the committee's preferred option and then take a vote by Microsoft Forms. Members, turning to the first recommendation, 3.2, you will see two options, Proposal A or Proposal B. Could I have a show of hands?
Chair, can I, Mr. Morgan did have his hand showing as you were going through that. He's taken it down now, so I don't know whether this is relevant to how you're going.
Mr. Morgan?
Just if I may, and just for the sake of completeness, I suppose I'm aware that the clerk to the meeting in committee services has indicated a gentleman has joined the meeting. The gentleman concerned has included is the person, the party responsible for the other proposal that has been submitted. Whilst I know I believe he's now in the meeting, it's whether, Chair, that you would perhaps invite him if he wishes to make any comments to you on his proposal, just for the sake of completeness. I suppose we've heard from Mr. Edwards, and it's whether, if obviously Mr. Salter wishes to make any, and with your permission, of course, perhaps at least you'll have all the information then from both parties, as opposed to only hearing, from Mr. Edwards. So, matter for you, Chair. I'll take advice from the solicitor, whether Mr. Salter is able to speak at the meeting. But I just wanted to raise that with you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Mr. Walbank, please.
Yeah, obviously there is scope on the agenda for Mr. Salter to speak. He is in the meeting, and I'd suggest the committee might find it useful to hear his views on these matters before you proceed to debate.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we were looking at the fact that he missed part of the debate, but we go to
yeah,
Mr.
I mean,
Salter
you can take
now.
that into account, Chair, when you're considering whatever Mr. Salter says. But it is a matter for your discretion. But I would suggest you might find it useful to hear what he's got to say.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. Mr. Salter, please.
Hello.
Morning, Mr. Salter. Can you give your representation now, please?
Oh yeah. Obviously, I asked Mr. Morgan about a price increase a few months ago. I run Relay Taxis, which is quite a large company in the Caerphilly borough, and basically we were facing the predicament whereby we haven't had an increase in about 4 years. So I thought that a 10% increase across the board would be fair, which is approximately 2.5% a year. And the other issue, which is what I put forwards, the other issue I've got is that I don't agree with this Tariff 2 thing. I think Tariff 2 should only apply from about 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. I think it's unfair on the trade, the consumers of the trade, to be paying Tariff 2 from 7 p.m. And also, I think it's unfair with this proposal of having Tariff 2 all weekend. I see that kind of victimising Saturday shoppers and Sunday people going out for lunch and etc. like that, which makes up a big part of our trade. But I do feel that the 10% increase, which is approximately what I've worked out, is fair, because by the time this goes through, it's going to be almost 4 years since the last increase.
Yeah.
Hello.
Have you finished, Mr. Salter?
Yeah, that's it. Obviously, my apologies for joining late. That's the only other thing I could say.
Okay. Are there any questions to Mr. Salter, please? No questions. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So members, we go back to the agenda. So turning to the first recommendation, 3.2, you'll see two options. Proposal
Chair,
A.
sorry to interrupt you. Do you want to move on to some debate before you get to that?
Well, I did ask for questions and no one put the hand up.
Yeah, there's a slight difference, Chair, between questions, obviously, to clarify facts on what the Speaker has said, and debate where members can kind of put forward their views as to what's been said by Mr. Morgan, Mr. Salter, and Mr. Edwards.
Okay, Mr. Adams, please. Councillor Adams.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Salter's added information there is welcome, I'm sure, for all of us, and good that we allowed him to put that. I wonder whether I can go back to Mr. Morgan and ask for a very quick calculation on how would that change the figures that we've been looking at for a 10% increase over that 4-year period.
Right. So, okay. Very difficult to give you off the cuff figures. I think all I can provide you with at this meeting will be what the proposals of both Mr. Edwards on behalf of Taxi Association and Mr. Salter looks like in terms of Appendix F. So if because that appendice contains the current tariff of fares, and it also contains then what each of the proposals would effectively look like for a passenger, going forward if either option, obviously one of the two options, is considered to be appropriate by members, then that is what the passengers will pay. So I very difficult for me to offer perhaps any other figures, I'm afraid, Councillor Adams, but that's what I would guide you back to as an indicator as to how it will look, what people will pay, which is ultimately what this is all about, isn't it? What the taxi driver will get.
This is it. I'm looking at Appendix F myself now, and I'm just looking at right from the very start in Tariff 1, Proposal A, blah, 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 1 mile, £3.40, 10% would be another 34p, so £3.74, which is less than is proposed.
Yes, I agree. If you I see. If you your question is then what would 10% look like across the board? Is it effectively, it'll take some time for me to produce those figures for you. I suppose it's not not in my gift.
The first couple and just add in 10% of what's current. They're falling slightly less than the proposal. I don't know whether Mr. Salter has gone through all of that himself, and that might actually take a few pence off, and then increasingly, of course, per mileage as it goes up.
I suppose what I would do is to bring you back, I suppose, to the recommendations in the report in terms of looking at the proposal. Albeit, I suppose members could make their own determination, about other aspects. Is to bring you back to the recommendation in the report for either proposal at this moment in time, Councillor Adams. But 10% would look slightly less than obviously the proposals as given in
and which are currently roughly rounded up as well, aren't they, to make it easier?
Yes. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any more questions, please?
No more hands showing.
No more hands showing, no.
Councillor
Roberts, please.
Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, Councillor Roberts, please.
Hello again, everyone. I was listening to what Councillor Adams said a while ago when he said he doesn't use taxis. Well, neither do I, really. Very, very infrequently. However, and this must be a really hard knock for all of us, isn't it? We've all gone through tough times, but, organising the running of fleet and driving vehicles at a time when bills are just going through the roof is just, you know, and you must have got them in your wards as well. I've got little areas that are more dependent, or people living in some areas that are more dependent on taxis than we realise, I think. Part of that may be not our fault as a council, but it's a shame really that we haven't got little buses running in from some estates and things, and we haven't. And some of those people need to go to places. They can't even, they're of an age, they can't even walk down to the nearest bus stop. And who's there to pick up the tab? Okay, part of their service, but they do provide more of a service than we appreciate, I think, some of these taxi people, you know? And we've got, as Lee has explained, and as we've had the papers, we've got 3 things to determine. Now, I think some of those are easier to come to a conclusion and a decision than others. Waiting time, I think waiting time makes sense. It's a given. Time is important for all of us. The people that need taxis and need to go, especially during the day, to the shopping, to the prescription or whatever, taxis allow them the time to go. And I read the comment in the reports as well, that one of the comments that had come in was that somebody was explaining when they wait, really, they could be losing fares elsewhere. So it's only fair that we up that waiting time as a recognition, really, of what's going missing, and as a recognition of what's been done. So I think waiting time, maybe you disagree, but I think waiting time is a given. I don't use taxis that often. I do sometimes, and I have no experience of organising a taxi. I do have experience of working shifts. I was a shift worker for 38 of my 40 odd years in the same place. And I was lucky when I went there, we had something called a shift disturbance allowance through an old agreement called the Whitley Agreement. And that provided every shift worker with an uplift of 20% as a shift disturbance allowance as recognition of what we were doing by working difficult hours. You're fine when you do it for a month, you're fine when you do it for 6 months, but it catches up with you. So we need to remember that taxi drivers work shift disturbance allowances. I was lucky as well when I was there because I had a Saturday and a Sunday premium. So when we look at the 7 till 7 or the 10 till 6 or the 10 or whatever, I kind of appreciate, I get what both gentlemen were saying. But to me, what Mr. Edwards was saying over the weekend makes sensible sense. That's where I am up to now, you know, and I really appreciate as well the idea of proposal B, looking at the public that use the taxis. I get it from the other end as well. I really get it. A suggestion has been made as well this morning that a way around that, maybe not for this morning, but a way to help everyone longer term might be addressing fares more often on smaller hikes, and that makes an awful lot of sense, I think, and in the long term that would make sense all round. That's all I've got to say. Diolch yn fawr.
Probably term it unsocial hours now, Rob, John, wouldn't we?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Councillor Roberts. Thank you. Are there no other questions? Thank you. So we go back to thanking members for your comments and questions. The recommendations on page 1 of the pack. Members are asked to consider the following proposal on the amendments to the Active Carriage Fare Tariff and make recommendations for a preferred proposal to the Cabinet for approval, and then to enable the proposals to be advertised in the press for 14-day public consultation period. Members, we will firstly take a show of hands using the Microsoft Teams, if we can. Take a show of hands to gather a general consensus of the committee's preferred option and then take a vote by Microsoft Forms. Members, turning to the first recommendation, Councillor Oldsworth?
Thank you, Chair. I thought we had to show of hands that we agree to go into the polls, you said.
Yeah, but we
it?
come to that now in a little while.
Okay, sorry.
Members, turn into the first recommendation, 3.2. You'll see two options, Proposal A or Proposal B. Please could I have a show of hands up if Proposal A is your preferred option? So, all voted? Yeah. Please could I have a show of hands for Proposal B? Is your preferred option, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Look at it. 4 votes. One. Could I have a mover, please, for this vote, for this proposal?
I will.
Proposal B.
I will, if you're
move,
looking for
Chair.
it, Chair. Diolch yn fawr.
Councillor Roberts, yeah, thank you. And a seconder, please.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Will
Thank you,
Paul-
Chair.
Aldworth's still got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to launch that vote now for Proposal B in Microsoft Forms. Thank
Okay.
you.
Councillor
It's
Oldsworth,
no-
you got?
Yeah, it's a legacy hand. Sorry,
Legacy,
Chair, I
yeah.
couldn't get it down. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. The forms there, please. Can you vote as you prefer? Yes, no, or abstain?
Thank you, Chair. That's 4 yes, 0 no, and 0 abstain. So the proposal for Proposal B is unanimous.
Thank you very much. So, members. Members, for the second recommendation, 3.2, you'll see two options. Increasing the waiting time by TNP for 30 seconds or not to increase the waiting time. Please could I have a show of hands up if increasing the waiting time by 10 pence per 30 seconds is your preferred option?
That's 3 hands up for that, Chair.
3 hands, thank
Yeah,
you.
I agree with that option as well, Chair. Sorry, I haven't got the hand up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Yep.
Please could I have a show of hands if not increasing the waiting time is your preferred option? No. Could I have a proposer, please, for the motion to increase waiting time by 10 pence per 30 seconds?
I move, Chair.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you both. So the poll will appear on the screen. Again, yes, no, and abstain, please. Recommendation, increase waiting time by 10 pence per 30 seconds.
There we go, Chair. That's 4 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain. So the recommendation to increase the waiting time is unanimously carried. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, members, for the third recommendation, you will see 3 options. Option A, to maintain current position. Option B, tariff 2, to apply Friday 7 p.m. to Monday 7 p.m. Option C, tariff 2, to apply 6 a.m. 7 days a week. Please could I have a show of hands for option A, please? Could I have a show of hands for option, oh, sorry. There's one, Councillor Roberts.
Yes, Chair. One for option A.
Apologies, I didn't mean to. Fat little finger pressed when I shouldn't have. Apologies, didn't mean to put it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Roberts.
That's none for option A then, Chair.
Okay. Could I have a show of hands, please? For option B is your preferred option.
That's 4 for option B, Chair.
Thank you. Could I have a show of hands for option C?
Just that 4.
Yeah, that's obviously is. Councillor Osworth, you got your hand up?
Sorry, it's a legacy hand. I'm trying to
Okay.
remove it now, Chair. I agree with the option as just mentioned.
Just mentioned, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So there's none for option C.
Yep. Could I have a proposer and a seconder, please, for option B?
Let's have a different. Come on, Liz.
Propose, Chair.
I'll second, Chair. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we'll have the vote on the screen again, please. Thank you. And we vote for option A. Sorry, it's option B. Yes, no, or abstain.
There we go, Chair. That's 4 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain. So option B is unanimously recommended.
Thank you very much. So we can confirm option B will be recommended to Cabinet. We now reach the end of the agenda. Thank you all for attending today, members, and good day to you. I declare the meeting closed. Please, can I ask you all to leave the Teams meeting via pressing the hang up and leave button.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, officer.